you forget about it. And then that's when that bitch gonna start working.
Now, the subject of that TikTok is love spells, but really just about spell work, energy work, intentional energy work, intentional manifesting in general. Because I really advise against love spells. I do not suggest anyone become fixated on any SP, because that's already poverty. An SP is already scarcity. And when you're doing love spells on a particular person, it is already acting from desperate energy. Because love is always present. And if you were aware of that from my perspective, there is no need to do a spell. Unless you're getting really loose with it, like you just want to attract more love in your life in general. But it's not up to me to dictate how y'all go about getting love into your life from another person. And I have received messages that people's SP stuff does work out and will go well for them. And I hate bringing those types of messages through because I don't like encouraging that type of thing. But I also have to be honest about what's coming through energetically, regardless if I like it or not. But I want to explain the energetic reasons for why, when you stop focusing on something, why, when you let it go, why, once you set it, then forget it. That is why the spell tends to start working. This is because when you are actively doing the spell work, what you are doing is gathering energy to you. When you're thinking about the thing you want, what's going on is that you are actually going da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da with the energy. And what's happening for the longer that you do that process, you're going and pulling it down and down and down and tighter and tighter and tighter and more and more and more. So for as long as you are fixated, what you are doing is gathering energy. And that process will typically feel burdensome to you because you're holding a lot of energetic weight and momentum. And energy wants to be free. It wants to flow. It doesn't want to be held back. That's why dams break. So you know, once you get over it, it feels immediately lighter, right? Because all that stuff that you've been and all of that, you just went pow. And now there is a massive amount of energy circulating in the universe charged with a very, very dramatic intention that you don't give a shit about anymore. That's why when that person or that thing finally comes in that you don't care anymore, you're just kind of over it because you're already on to the next thing. And while this can seem frustrating, it's actually extremely beneficial, especially if it's a person you would like to cultivate a relationship with, because you don't want all that focused attention on them. You want that on you and your projects, or not obsession, but at least your own attention. And so when that person comes in, you'll be at a place of flow with them, not fixation. And that can be the place love grows. We've all heard if you want to manifest, what you've got to do is release it. You've got to let it go. And this is true. But can you manifest without letting go? Yep, you can actually manifest any which way. And you can absolutely manifest without letting it go. But I don't recommend it, and here's why. When you're manifesting this way, what you're doing is creating without the assistance of the wider forces, whatever those wider forces that you are choosing to work with look like, it doesn't matter. You're taking on the energetic burden entirely on your own. What you are predominantly using is willpower. And some people have a lot of willpower and they can do a lot on their own. The reason why I don't do this is because it tends to be an extremely uncomfortable process. And there are a lot more fun and relaxing and less efforting ways to manifest. The benefit of using just willpower to manifest is that you tend to have way more control over what's going on in general. However, you do not have the power of the wider universe. So you attempting to manifest a lot in this way is going to exhaust you continually. Because while you are a very powerful being, no, you don't have the power of the greater universe. So while you are creating, you are having to burn through your personal energy reserves all the time. And then once you have created that thing, you have manifested successfully, what tends to happen is in order to keep that manifestation in place, you have to continue expending just as much energy as you did to create it to keep it in place. That's exhausting, and typically people do burn out and then their manifestation dissolves. They lose it. And it can also have detrimental physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual costs. Because what you're actually doing to create one change on your own in materiality is you are actually creating a pocket dimension. Just one change, one long-term change. You are creating an entirely other reality for yourself. And that takes a lot of energy. That's world-creating energy. And if you have a lot of willpower, determination, discipline, you can do that for a while. But guess what? Even stars collapse, even galaxies collapse, everything falls to entropy, so too will your reality. And if you are the locus of that generative force, it's all going to collapse onto you. So be careful. That's why I tend to do a mix. A move from me, a move from the wider forces, and it's more like a dance, or even just giving it up to the universe. So we have harmony and balance, not domination.
The universe, let me know if this is a sign or a test, because I'm not trying to fail. I'm trying to find my husband, you know?
So let's talk about why she hasn't manifested, and the example of I want a husband. Go back and watch the video for full context, as what she is doing in the video is explaining how she interacted with someone who ghosted her years ago, and now she's interacting with them again. First of all, she's not being very specific with the request. She just wants a husband, which just based on the content, not her personally, because of course I don't know, she's looking for someone to fit a role, and potentially not a fully realized individual to grow in intimacy with and commitment. So first of all, that's very messy energy if just anyone will do who will treat you any sort of way as long as they're willing to fill the role of husband. Putting that aside, in order to manifest a husband, you would need to be embodying the energy of wife. Let's get into the essence of wife, the energy of wife. This would be a woman or femme who has a very deep sense of self-respect. Someone who's deeply committed to themselves. Someone with a very deep understanding of their self-worth. Hence, the only treatment they will accept from others is the same. Self-respect, self-worth, honoring. Would a woman who is embodying that energy keep the number of a man who treated her like crap for years in her phone? Would she have kept that channel open in the first place? But let's give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she forgot, right? When he texted back years later, would someone who is embodying wife energy acknowledge, respond, engage with a person who treated them like they were nothing in the past? No. When you hang on to people like this, even on your phone, even energetically, what you are telling the universe is that I am willing to accept anything, any sort of treatment. As long as they're here, right? As long as they come back, I'll accept anything. That doesn't communicate self-respect and self-love. This is not wife energy. This is side piece energy. Side pieces take scraps. The moment someone treats you like nothing, I don't care who it is, I don't care if it's a romantic relationship, I don't care, you stop all engagement. That is how you tell the universe no. Stop interacting, stop being in their presence, block them, get them out of your phone, block them everywhere, leave no energetic channel open, not the slightest bit. You want to, as soon as you are able, close out all of the no's so that all you are open to is the yes. That's how you manifest with the state of engagement. So if y'all want treasure, stop entertaining trash.
To look them in their eye when you ask, okay? And look them in the eye when you ask.
A lot of the times what she was describing when she's especially talking about getting something out of a man, but really it's any person. It doesn't have to be a man. She's just talking about men. She's talking about neurolinguistic programming. She's talking about hypnotism. She's talking about mentalism, or mental dominant manifestation. And this will work, but only on extremely weak-willed people. And here's another thing. Mentalism, manifesting predominantly from the mind and the mental plane, isn't feminine. What she's telling you to do is be extremely masculine, if we even want to use those terms, because you certainly do not have to. But that's heavily masculine energy, dominating someone, especially within the realm of the intellect. And what is it as well? It is, in fact, grapist energy. When you do that, you are mentally graping people. It's predator energy. Will it work? Yes. That's why she's always talking about choosing the right target, because she's describing being a predator. That's not soft life. That's survival of the fittest. It is not high femme. And you might want to be mindful about the energy that you're putting out, the energy that you're embodying. Because while there is no hard and fast spiritual law, like people are trying to tell you there is, there are guidelines, there are generalities. And one of those guidelines and generalities is that the energy that you tend to embody, the energy that you tend to manifest with, that is the energy that your manifestation will be made out of. So are you sure you want to manifest from grapest energy? And what she'll normally tell people is like, oh, you can do things, you can jump through hoops. There's all these little mental tricks that you can go through to make this work, to make anything you want work. And sure, she's probably right. However, that's also a very desperate way to live. But that is your preference. It's up to you. So go for it, if that's what you want. Just understand the energetic mechanics of what you are doing before you're doing it. Otherwise, you might be in for some nasty surprises. Have you ever felt unfairly isolated, bullied, maybe even gang stalked? Do you identify with videos telling you that the reason why this is going on is because you just carry this astounding inner light? Well, here's the thing. I believe everyone has a very great inner light. The only difference between us is that some of us are more aware and some of us aren't, depending on how you are framing reality. And there's really only been one instance I can think of where someone was bullying me covertly because they were jealous of me. They just couldn't stand to see anything good happening to me. But even in that instance, it's never been about my inner light. I'll tell you what it's been about because I've experienced it fairly regularly. And it's usually pretty much always going to be within a social setting where you have a whole bunch of people who you would refer to as basics, normies, or NPCs. It's been because people have made assumptions about me based on how I look, how I dress, what job I got, who I'm related to. It's been because while I'm intelligent, I don't really have an intelligence that is widely respected within mainstream society. And by that, I mean I am not a STEM-heavy person. That is actually a very big weak point for me. But I tend to have a decent to high amount of emotional, psychological intelligence. And my intuition is extremely high. So is my pattern recognition. This means I can read people in situations fairly well. But because people don't respect me and they don't value the type of intelligence that I have, even when I tell them something very directly that ends up being true, I'm not believed at the time. And usually after the fact, for some reason, people either forget that I told them something or they just sort of diminish what I told them, even when it turned out to be very important and accurate. It's been because sometimes people perceive that I've had an easier life or have an easier time than they have. And it is also because I do not generally play by conventional social rules. I don't care about your money. I don't care about your title. I don't care about your looks. I care that you're intelligent. I care that you're kind. I care that you're open-minded. I care that you're cooperative. These are the things that I am generally going to give respect, time, and attention to. And when I don't participate in the things like the gossip and the ganging up on and things like that people tend to bond over, well, then I become a target. And very importantly, at particular times in my life, my trauma has caused me to act in ways that aren't so great. They seemed reasonable to me at the time, but upon self-reflection, they weren't, even if they were valid for the trauma and the response to it. So people not wanting to be in my presence at that time isn't a huge surprise. So are you sure it's your light? I know the Be His Dream Girl thing is really popular on TikTok, and in general, I agree. Obviously, you want to entertain people who are obviously interested in you. And that's going to look like someone's words and behaviors are going to be matched up and aligned with their energy consistently. But I would never ever try to become someone's dream girl. And most people talking about this aren't giving this type of advice. You're just looking for the one who already considers you their dream girl. Still, if someone I was dating ever said anything like, oh my God, you're like my dream girl, it's like you stepped out of a dream, who are you? I would actually be thinking twice. Someone who's perceiving you as a dream isn't someone who's going to make a lot of allowances for your reality. And if you're looking for long-term intimacy and commitment, it's just not going to work. Because sometimes I look really nice, sometimes I'm in a good mood, sometimes I'm firing on all cylinders, but certainly not 24/7, 365. Dream girls don't exist. Dream guys don't exist either. Unless it is your job to maintain a fantasy for a person, then I would not even expend energy on doing this. And when it is your job, you're usually not living with these people, and not full time. This is typically the appeal of a mistress. She might be in a relationship with someone, they might have bought her her own space, but this person is not the person who gets the man or the husband or whoever 24/7. That person is typically the wife. And the wife is the person who gets to deal with reality, which never feels as good as a fantasy, at least not long term. And the mistress, well, she might be the dream girl, she might be there for a long time, but she's never going to get anything like real intimacy, that 24/7 day-to-day life with that person. Because once you go there, then it becomes reality. And people who are doing the mistress or dream girl or dream guy thing aren't looking to manifest reality, they're looking to stay in dreamland. And that only ever exists in your head or in the short term within reality. That's why people tend to jump from relationship to relationship to relationship, or they have lots of mistresses, or, they just make sure they're only spending certain amounts of time with their mistresses so it doesn't get old, it doesn't become real. Being the dream girl means never being the entirety of yourself, because you're either catering to someone's idealized version of you, or they've just put you on a pedestal for a while. And you'll soon be knocked off, because everyone eventually wakes up.
Don't you find it weird that the only place that they find UFOs is in America?
It actually is not weird at all, and I'm going to explain why. And the racism angle is fairly accurate. So in America, you will hear about UFOs, aliens, or extraterrestrials, so from outer space, and then people who have what they say to be alien abduction syndrome. And that'll be experiencers, people like me who have had the alien abduction experience. And that's usually chronic. And in America, these things are usually tied up very deeply with conspiracies about secret government technology, MK Ultra, and things of that nature. Just because you only hear about UFOs in America doesn't mean that other cultures and countries aren't experiencing that phenomena. They're just usually experiencing it in a different way, and they're not calling it the same thing. Now, here's the thing. The reason why they are called UFOs now, and why it's called alien abduction syndrome now, is because of colonialism. It's because historically, white people, white cultures, Western cultures have the very violent habit of going into a new territory that was already named, already inhabited, already had its own people, cultures, you know the drill. Come in, rename everything, reclassify everything, take away the language, take away the way of being, and everything that did not fit the Western cultural frame was eradicated or renamed or described as evil. If you look at some indigenous oral tradition, you will find references to what we are calling UFOs and alien abduction syndrome. It's just they weren't calling it that. They already had a language for it. They knew it was part of the natural environment. And there was an awareness that somehow these particular beings and ourselves were interacting in ways that we didn't necessarily understand, but nonetheless, it was very real. There was an understanding that we're not the only ones occupying this space, and there is a certain amount of respect to be afforded to each other. Unfortunately, there are a lot of white people that aren't interested in respecting or understanding what cannot be perceived with the senses or current technological equipment. And what does not fit that frame will be reclassified as a mental illness or as primitive savagery. The little people, the good people, folk, jinn, the chupacabra, kami, they are all likely manifestations of a similar source. Also, we only report that because we believe it's out of the ordinary. Most of y'all know I'm super into manifestation. And I talk a lot about it, and I have my own system. And I use my own system. I'm using the state of engagement right now. Every day I engage with something that is taking me further and further along the journey to manifest what I envision for myself into my materiality. And while sometimes things really do just come in for us without us having to do any sort of work or efforting, usually it's a mix of both, though I always leave the door open for small and very large miracles. And have I manifested everything that I've ever set my mind to? Yes. At least somewhere on the spectrum of what I've envisioned for myself. So while I've published books, I am not a bestseller. While I've manifested specific people, those specific people haven't been permanent fixtures in my life. Am I living my absolute dream existence right now? No, but it's close, and it's possible. And with my continued engagement, that possible becomes closer to probable, which then becomes inevitable. The most important part of this is to say that while I have not manifested absolutely everything that I want, and I likely never will, I don't agree with everything Abraham Hicks says, but I do agree with you're never done. You will never have everything you want because life is a continuous creation. None of it just stops. You get one thing and then that inspires you on to the next. The point is, I will never settle. Settling is a commitment to misery. When you settle, what you are telling yourself is, I do not believe that I am worth what I want. And I promise you would rather try and fail than you would settle. And if you know you have people around you who have settled, you may want to consider, depending on the nature of the relationship, distancing yourself from them. People who have settled or have given up on themselves are not happy people. And as you continue to work on your dream, it is more than likely they will try to convince you that it will never happen, that you shouldn't even bother trying. You're going to have to settle. And while I value pragmatism and having realistic plans, I will never entertain settling. We might course correct, we might change what we want, but we do not settle. And you really don't want that energy around you while you are attempting to create your dreams. People who have settled are people who will sabotage. If they didn't do it, they don't want to see you do it. Because oh, how painful seeing that is. Keep going. What you're doing is worth it.